Again, thanks so much for taking time to talk to me today.
My pleasure.
I'm really curious, like, how do you go from playing like warehouse shows to working for HBO and like MCU adjacent stuff?
You spend it's a long time. I mean, when I started, I didn't think I'd be doing any of this, including the shows. Like I went to school and I studied music, um, but I didn't study film scoring and I wasn't a performer. I kind of fell into performing. Like I liked parties and I liked making electronic music but I didn't think I would like tour or be a touring musician or release records. Especially, I didn't think I'd release records that anyone would listen to, if that makes any sense. So when that happened, that kind of was, but there wasn't like this lucrative career or opportunities for uh, an unknown composer who wrote basically unplayable and unenjoyable music. Yeah, I was really into like Xenakis and George Crumb, and I was just coming out of school and didn't really like I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I was kind of not disenfranchised. I thought 2012 was going to be the end of the world. I was really into that, like more from like oh, this would be cool kind of perspective rather than anything else. But I've always had a pretty bizarre and meandering career. And I, I don't know. I don't know how to answer your question, as you can tell by my answer. But
No, like I mean, I feel like I was working in college radio, right, when Spider-Man of the Rings came out. Like
oh,
that
tight.
was and I just remember everybody being like, "Have you fucking heard this?" And, like it seems to have like I feel as though a lot of like musicians like who have become composers for film and television, it's a lot of folks like making these things who are just like, I'm gonna get one of my favorite musicians to do music for my movie or my show or my short film or whatever. And it seems like you definitely kind of started out working with like people you knew from Baltimore.
Definitely. Well, I my first film score was for Francis Ford Coppola. And that came about in this really crazy way. I got an email one day and I didn't believe it was him. I thought it was like the new Nigerian prince scam. It's like, oh, well, we'll email composer. Like, I have $50 million. This was like, I'm Francis Ford Coppola and I want to meet you. And I was like, there's no way this is real. Um, and I literally, I just thought it was like a scam or a prank and didn't pay it any mind. And eventually got in touch with my booking agency and it was real. And he heard me talking on NPR about the unique situation that music has, where you can have what the artist can consider to be the definitive, perfect version, which is the album and or the score, and that lives forever. Um, you're making the best that you can with the materials, the budget, and the time that you have at that time. And then you get to do it differently every night. And a film is set, it's always the same. And a play is never the same. And it's a book is read differently by every single person who reads it. And if you hear it read, it's that way exclusively. And music has this malleability that the artist gets to decide. And that resonated with Francis, and we started riffing about that and sort of talking about music and yada yada yada. And then he asked me to score his next film. I've always wanted to score for this is like 2010. And I was like, oh, I've always wanted to score films. This would be great. And I very quickly realized I have no idea what I'm doing. That it's a completely different set of muscles. It's not just writing music, it's storytelling. And it's not at all what I'm prepared for. And luckily, Francis is he's a great collaborator, very down to experiment, definitely likes to do things differently. I think that's why I was in the mix to begin with at all. But I pumped the brakes after that film and was like, I need to come into this the way I came into everything else, the way I came into the DIY scene, the way I came into making albums, the way I came into touring. So I took a few years off and then met Theo Anthony, the director of this doc called Rat Film. And Theo had never made a feature before. And we kind of just like discovered it together, like the process of like what it meant to be a director directing a composer and what it meant to be a composer working with a director. Like we didn't know what a cue sheet was. We were like, what if we had like a spreadsheet and we like put all of the instances of music on that and we could put the ins and outs and stuff. Um, and it was great. We loved it. And then I started working with after that, people were like, "Oh, you're into this? Let's try it out." And it was still like very much writing music that was being set to film. It it took a couple of years to really get the difference. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
And luckily, I was working with experimental films, and those early on when you're working with a very small indie production, particularly docs, the director is the editor. So you get that relationship right off the bat, and you understand like the timing and the pacing and the pulse and the breath that they're so that sort of musicality comes out. And since it's a smaller team, it's a bit easier to land. Do you know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think once I started working on it, I think Philly DA was my first like, oh, I need to change my approach here. There's three directors spread across 7 episodes. I think it was 7 episodes, maybe. It was many episodes, multiple editors with different styles, and it. I think I really learned a lot on that project. And I was doing three features at the same time, so it was like this is what I do now, I guess. And it kind of just like it was like when you're like in the water, like at the beach, and after a while you're like, wow, I've really drifted far away from where I got in. It was kind of like that. But luckily it was during COVID, so I couldn't tour. And I had this creative outlet and I fell in love with it. And I realized pretty quickly, like even when COVID is over, I want this to be my focus. Like the level of collaboration and experimentation and writing musics that I would never get to write by myself. Like I couldn't release half of these pieces of music as Dan Deacon. Do you know what I mean? Like it would just
Yeah. Yeah.
disenfranchise. It just it's it's just I don't know. I really that's a pretty but I think that coming from it with that sort of experimental, let's try to do it differently mindset helped me land a lot of those outlier gigs that you're talking about, like Venom and now Task.
Yeah, and like I love the fact that like you kind of like got to learn working on like these indie docs with folks and then kind of work your way back to like more traditional feature films like Venom or Hustle or Resball, but like they're all still even those feature films are very, very different movies. Um, which I is that like sort of the appeal is that you're getting to work in all of these different genres. Like there's, like there's like a superhero action movie. There's this like crime thriller that is Task, or there's like the the res ball, which is on a res.
Mhm.
Is that like the appeal is just getting to like
Oh
work
yes.
all of these different genres?
I think the appeal is just to write as much music as possible. It's really, I like writing music. If I didn't have those gigs, I'd be in here writing other music. And the fun part is the collaboration. I can write my own music in my studio whenever I want. I'll never get to like with Sid on Resball, like collaborating with Sydney on that film is a a universe of music that I wouldn't have tapped into without it being that particular story with that particular director. And that's the exciting part. Like I like working across as many different mediums. So I like working in nonfiction and fiction. Like I don't really have a preference. It's just, are you down to explore what music can do for the storytelling? Like, and as long as the team is into that, I'm into being a part of that team. I don't I try to start every project differently and try not to go into it with too much of a formula. I'm a systems person. I like when systems emerge, but it's like a band that exists. Like, and I'm joining the band. I'm like, I got some sick riffs, but like maybe I should hear the material for like they have a story. Like it depends on when I start as well. Like on Resball, I came in reading the script, and then we talked a lot about texture and timbre and what to do and what not to do. And with Venom, I came in pretty hot. I mean, I came in August and we wrapped in September and it came out in October. So pretty different structure. And like Task, I was on for, I think, I think they must have had most of principal photography done, but the edit hadn't begun. So we could demo and make like a huge backlog of motifs and our own temp library to work from. Um, but yeah, I guess to go back to answer your question is I just like to have as many opportunities to explore different musics, and they all tend to be kind of left of center depending on where they land. Like Hustle certainly wasn't a traditional uh, basketball like underdog score. Do you know what I mean? Like we
Yeah.
leaned in a lot to like player piano, for example. Um, and with Venom, I think Kelly wanted it to be as like dirty and tons of like weird vocal samples and lots of grit. And it was fun. It was fun to experiment. And I guess that, yeah, that's it. My goal is to just work with people who also want to experiment. It's fun to not know what we're going to get, but know that we're going to like get there, if that makes any sense. There's an exploration to it.
So what brought you to Task? Like, were you familiar? Like, it's kind of a big deal. I mean, it is like Brad Ingelsby's first thing after Mare of Easttown, which was like a very big deal. Got a, you know, SNL parody, which I think is like the sign that
I haven't
something
seen that. I
has
gotta watch
really
that.
reached like the zeitgeist. Like a lot of people know it. Like, what brought you to working on this particular project?
Um, well, after Hustle, I worked with Jeremiah again on Monster Factory. And then when that wrapped, he was like, I'm going to work on this HBO series. He's like, I'm not the showrunner, I'm a director, but I'm also executive producer. You should, we should put you up for it. And I was like, I would love to do it, obviously. And I had a ballet staged in Philly. I can't remember what year this was. But Brad was in town. Brad and Jeremiah were in town to either meet. I think they were going to a basketball game. And so they came to the ballet. And the ballet is called Become a Mountain and has a lot of like heavy influence from like the American minimalists, like heavy Steve Reich, heavy Phil Glass, Terry Riley. And we just started riffing. Brad came backstage and we just sort of like started talking about music and our love of minimalists and, you know, the people I mentioned and Meredith Monk in particular, and just stayed in touch. And I was probably annoyingly aggressive about how badly I wanted to do this series. But I never worked with HBO before, so I had to go through the gauntlet of that. If that, like every studio, like if you've never worked with them, it doesn't matter. You have to prove to them you can do it,
Be
I guess.
vetted, as it were.
Yeah,
Yeah.
vetted. That's a better way to put it than me just describing it as a gauntlet. I mean, everyone was really kind and good. So, it's nothing gauntlet-esque about it whatsoever. But yeah, I think it was that. Like, luckily, I had Jeremiah's back, and we had done two things together, and I knew his musical vocabulary very well, and I think he knew how I worked, and there was a lot of range in this show. So we talked a lot about that, like how would we balance the uh, emotional delicacy and like the pretty intense sequences of violence and tension. So, but those initial conversations were, it reminded me a lot of the initial conversation with Francis, where it's like we're just two artists talking about what we love about other work. And I think a lot comes from that, just like finding that. It's like when you're little kids and you're like, oh, you like Spider-Man? Do you like Spectacular Spider-Man? Or do you like Amazing Spider-Man? Oh, cool. Yeah, I like Amazing Spider-Man. Like you just start riffing and figure out like, oh, I could hang out with this person for 2 years straight, even in stressful conditions, and it would be fun. I think that's 99% of the job is like, are you the same kind of psychopath as me? And would we be decent roommates? So
That's a great way of putting it. Like like I love that. I love everything about that. So, like, this is coming out in just like 4 days from when we're talking now. Like, what other things do you have in the works that you can talk about?
probably can't get too specific. But I'm working on a BBC series that I'm pretty excited about. Working on a Nat Geo doc that I'm really excited about. A couple of features and my own album somewhere in the puddle of those projects will be. Luckily, they're all sort of staggered, but I don't know. I'm just staring at my calendar right now. But yeah, I can't get too specific about anything because I don't want to get in trouble.
Right.
But I'm keeping busy and feeling lucky to be busy. And I'm just excited for this to be out because when you work on a show like this, like there's no one to you know when you're into a show and you like
Hmm.
the Monday after you can get to talk about it. Like I've been living in this like endless Sunday night 10 p.m. for like a year and a half now. And like soon it will finally be my Monday, and I could be like, "What'd you think about episode one?" So I'm very excited, and it is a big deal. Like I Sunday night HBO show is huge for me, and like I spend most of my Sunday nights at 9 p.m. watching that show that happens to be where Task is going to be. So, and I was a huge fan of Mare, and I don't know. It was great that Brad was he was great. The one quick thing, I don't know, uh, the way we found our style was I went up to set one day when they were shooting to like show some demos, and I'd sent all the stems ahead of time. And during lunch, Brad broke out his laptop and he had all of the individual stems in their own tab in his browser. And he was like, I really like the bowed vibes from this. And it sounds pretty good with the alto flute from this. And he would like cue them, like he had them like pause because like they're stems. So there's like huge periods of silence. And he was like DJing the 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 tabs on his browser, and it was incredible. And we worked a lot that way, being because no, most times I like to send stems so people can like the shakers drive me nuts, but I mostly think it's for the editors. So it was really cool to be him being like, no, I listen to every individual stem, and I was like, dude, that's like hundreds of stems. So he got really in the weeds in like a very collaborative way, just wanting to know how the sausage got made without the technical stuff, just listening to the raw parts. And you kind of only get that. Uh, I mean, the only time where I can get that like immediate feedback is like on the stage when we're recording with an orchestra, where like there's so many times where the director's like, "Oh, what's that? Oh, can we hear more of that?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, those are called the woodwinds. We can bring them up." Um, but it was cool to have that early on and know like, okay, cool. We're really going for this alto flute and bowed vibes sound. Now we can try it out in these different areas, and we know what's not working. We know it does work. Uh, I don't know. It was fun. It was really fun to have that sort of like exploratory partner.
That's so cool. Like right on set too. Like that just sounds
Yeah,
like
we were in craft services, just like out of the laptop speakers. And
that's so great, man. Oh God, I can't wait to watch this. Well, Dan Deacon, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk
oh,
to me
anytime.
and get weird. Like this has been great. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I can't wait for everybody to get to watch this.
Me too. I didn't realize you hadn't seen that. I just hope I didn't spoil. Definitely hope I didn't spoil anything because HBO would fucking
You
kill me.
spoiled nothing, and I cannot wait for 4 days from now.
Sweet. Well, thanks for talking. This was real fun, and I will talk to you soon.
Goodbye.
Thanks again. Bye bye.